I'm joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri and Professor Swaran Singh from Center for International Studies. And my question is straight and simple. Let me straight away go to Professor Swaran Singh first. Is there a limit to Pakistan's outreach? Because Field Marshal Asim Munir seems to be dialing a lot of numbers simultaneously. If they may not work in terms of real deal, but in terms of optics, it does have an effect, sir.
There is no doubt this sudden change of Pakistan being able to seduce, I'm intentionally using that word, United States into finding rare earth elements in Pakistan does rattle to some extent how India views that growing proximity. But I tried seriously to think about it after I saw that 8th of September, one private company and one company related to Pakistan military have signed an MoU talking about $500 million of investments over 3 phases. And I thought, what could make them do it? The only answer I could think of was that just like at some stage when the oil prices at international market went enough high and the water fracking technology became possible to use shale oil and America became an oil exporter. Similarly, the desperation of United States to deal with the Chinese absolute monopoly on rare earth minerals, both in terms of reserves and also in terms of refining, smelting and separating, they are willing to go to any extent, and that goes back to pandemic period, the Western countries realizing their excessive dependence on China. 30% plus manufacturing of the world happens in China, and since then they've been talking about friendshoring, onshoring and so on. So those concerns may make them desperate enough to start exploring rare earth elements which have not been found by any serious international geological surveys so far, though Pakistan has often flaunted the reserves between anywhere 8 to 50 trillion dollars, which is a joke. So that could perhaps be one way, but I assume even then 2 problems will arise. One, for any extensive 3-phase based exploitation of so-called rarely available rare earth materials in Pakistan, US will have to depend on enormous infrastructure built by the Chinese. And of course, deal with this insecurity issues in Pakistan. So I think much easier and commercially viable strategy for them will be start looking at recycling first at home, using all kinds of e-waste and extracting rare earth materials from there. And this is, to me, may not be impossible given the desperation of United States, but it's very improbable for me to become a possibility or a commercially viable reality.
Ambassador Sikri, story, Professor Swaran Singh. I don't recall the last time where the general and the Prime Minister would stand like this, holding hand in such an amicable situation, that too with the most powerful man, the President of the United States of America. Aren't they trying also to showcase a hybrid sort of a government, derive some sort of a legitimacy through these photo optics that, well, this is the new model of the government where the general and the Prime Minister are going to stand together?
Karthik, I'm so happy you brought this up because I have been feeling it a bit discomfiture about it, that now Prime Minister Sharif, whether he goes to Tianjin or now he goes to Washington DC, he takes his field marshal along. I mean, this is not, I have not seen in international meetings any such template before. And if you link this to the reality that in about last 7-8 decades of Pakistan's history, nearly 35 years military has been directly in control of power, and for rest of the years possibly indirectly in control, and that makes us read this new template in a very different fashion. And Mr. Sikri mentioned, why is China silent, and Trump is doing that outreach to China. Remember, it is only one-sided love affair. It's Trump constantly outreaching to China. He called Xi Jinping twice, inviting him for his inauguration. President Xi Jinping never went there. Later, he raised 145% tariffs, then brought it down and then gave 90 days pause. What have Chinese done? Chinese have launched investigation on United States chip dumping in China. They have refused to buy his favorite soya bean. Chinese are standing very straight as far as they are concerned. They are not responding to the outreach, and I don't think on any condition whatsoever Chinese can allow or will let it happen that there could be an American airbase in Pakistan, they will find it extremely difficult to digest that kind of a reality. I'm sure they are doing whatever back channel diplomacy requires, and that is why you saw as the Field Marshal and Prime Minister were sitting in White House, Defense Minister Khwaja Asif was giving interviews to European journalists saying this US relationship is only flirtation. Our real friend is China. So there are signals happening that I feel are some kind of signals to China that this is not a serious relationship. But Trump, given by his push factors, his attempt to teach India a lesson. I mean, India has third largest known reserves of rare earth materials, nearly 6.9 million metric tons. I mean, if he needs really to approach a country where he wants to compete with China in rare earth materials, India is a clear choice. I mean, second largest is Brazil. He has difficult relations with Brazil.
But it brings me to my last question. Singh, are we going to see a sort of a longer time span of our relationship with Asim Munir, the way India had to deal with Musharraf? What's your assessment, very quickly?
My assessment is very clear. It is promotion of Asim Munir to Field Marshal which has justified their victory rather than other way around. And he is likely to stay for a longer period of time. Whether he is going to directly take over power, I have doubts on that, because army lately in last 2 to 3 decades have showcased they prefer to stay behind the doors and let politicians be on the front as a facade. So he may not directly take over power, but he is likely to stay as a very influential.
Which means that the dilemma, sir, is that ultimately we'll have to end up doing business with Asim Munir, because he is completely made a bonsai out of their democratic system and very handsomely showcased it in the Oval Office, telling the world that who is calling the shots. That's the irony of the situation. But thank you for